Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once?
Hey guys, this is Aaron.
This is Chad.
Welcome to the Screen Day Podcast, and
What?
we're back.
Are we still doing this?
We are.
I didn't know we were still doing these.
Yeah, I know, right?
Awesome.
God, it's been forever.
It has been forever.
Forever. So our apologies. Jesus, I'm not even drinking and I sound drunk.
Yeah.
Our apologies to everyone for the delay in uptakes or retakes or really any takes whatsoever.
Yeah. It's just nice to get back doing it again. So hopefully we can get on a more regular schedule.
Yeah, the plan is to be back at it on a weekly basis, a little bit more regimented.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think for those of you who didn't know it, both Chad and I had some health issues that we were dealing with at the first part of the year, which was the major reason for our hiatus. I'm at least walking, so I got that going for me.
Believe it or not, I'm the one that had brain surgery.
That's true. Never would have guessed that. Never would have guessed
Awesome.
it. So, but yeah, I think I'm glad to be back at it. Let's be honest, is what everyone's interested in. How's business? How's life?
Things are good. Yeah.
Are we getting back at it?
We are getting back at it. I'm still away from the shop for the most part. I do some of the art, but Nicole, who's been the brains of the operation anyway, so she's still
Rebecca's the brains of the operation here too. So we're just the pretty faces. That's all we are. Yeah,
I'm arm candy.
That's it.
So, world's largest, fattest arm candy.
One whose head can cast a shadow.
Yeah. A shine and a shadow.
There's got to be like a I don't know, like a Chinese proverb of man's head which casts shadow or something.
Let's not figure that out.
But anyway, it's I'm excited, man.
Things
here are good, man. We've got so much stuff going on, so much stuff. So
I'm still out in the marketplace a little bit, talking to other screen printers about DTF and about contract work and stuff like that. But it's shocking how many people are polarized on this. That's one of the things I was going to talk to you about anyways. But like, you either believe that you should be turning your phone off before you call people.
Yeah, always good. Always good.
Anyways, there's two camps on this. You either believe that DTF is a part of this industry for good, or you hate DTF with a passion.
So my viewpoint on that is you're probably hating DTF with a passion because you're losing so much business to it.
Well, I think these are the people that are like, I've been doing it this way for 30 years, and like they just got indoor plumbing.
Okay, so I don't disagree. We could actually refer back to episode 1 where we chatted with our boy there at AKD, where his eyes were open to it too, and he didn't understand the revolution it does within your own shop, right? So those of you who have not watched that, I strongly suggest you go back to episode 1. It was a great episode, but I will tell you, before DTF, you ran into those screen printers where not only they weren't even interested in new innovations in screen print. Like, I've been doing this way for 30 years, and there's nothing.
Using this emulsion.
I've been using this emulsion. I know how to use it. Don't tell me otherwise. I don't know why we're using grumpy old man voice, but it's true. Like, I mean, those guys are really thick-headed, and it's really hard to get anything through to them, and it's sad. I don't know if they're like, I just want to die on this hill today. Like, this is the hill I'm going to die on. Well, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand the business owner who isn't open to making more money or even capturing more revenue in a different fashion.
Well, I'll throw this out to you. So the reason some of these places I targeted was, one, they're struggling. They haven't updated their equipment. They are losing employees. They don't have as many print jobs. And I was like, look, you could still either one, we could contract print for you at less than what you're printing your own shit for,
Right.
or two, we could do DTFs for you. And it's like their resistance to all change is slowly pushing them away.
Yeah, I think it's the end. I think I think some of them may live in an era that just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And it's and hey, if they're gonna slowly die out, they slowly die out. They're gonna go into an extinction, and that's okay, right?
So one of the things, and this is one of the things I was explaining with one of the people I met with, and I was like, look, if he's like, I'm just going to do this until I can't. And then I was like, and then you'll sell your business, right? And he's like, no, I'll just close it. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. You've invested all this time in learning it and creating something. Why wouldn't you?
Does your business have value?
Right. It
Yeah.
should have value. But I've actually seen it several times now. I've talked to people about just, one, acquiring shops, acquiring business, all that stuff. And they're like, no, I'll just close.
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I don't get it at all.
I'm going to keep doing it my way until I've lost every
single thing.
and then once I've lost all the customers, then I'll shut down.
Right. And then hopefully there's some Social Security money left.
So, and I'm going to tell you right now, I am not in the entire screen printing world is going DTF. That's not it at all. I think a couple of things that are happening, and a local screen printer here who's been a screen print guy, right? He's been all my customers want screen print. So he came to me and he goes, help me. He goes, he just came into the shop to grab some ink, and he was like, how is this DTF? He goes, show me the DTF system. So I go over and I just showed to him, and I didn't give him a demo or anything. I was just showing him what each one does. And he was like, I need to do something. And I said, well, why do you need to do something? What changed from last year to this year? And he was like, my customers don't want to wear the same thing as another customer. So his industry is the restaurants.
Okay.
Right. So let's just say I'm printing for St. Patrick's Day, or I'm printing for, they don't want the same graphic with a different restaurant name on it. Right. They want their own graphic.
I see.
And they want not just their own graphic, they want lots of different versions of their own graphic.
Oh.
And this has been, so
this is doing 14 shirts.
Yeah.
6 color, 14 shirt.
So now he's, and everybody wants their own design, and I don't want the design of another restaurant. And even if the restaurants are 300 miles apart, they don't want the same design as somebody else. So I can see where that's going. It's allowing people to be a little bit more creative. It's allowing them to market a little bit more. But now, instead of doing one run that was 3,000 shirts, now he's going to have to do 30 100 piece runs that are not low color. So,
that's a disaster.
So what I'm seeing for screen print, right? So I think what I'm seeing is even a shift within the consumer base. Even if DTF wasn't here, you're seeing a shift. And I think some of it is just the way technology is moving at this point, right? You've got AI, you've got all these things, and people just want to be able to differentiate themselves from somebody else.
Well, we are moving into the consumer base now is very instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
They want their shirt. They want it to say what they want it to say, how they want it to say it. But I just want one. It's just for me.
Yep.
And if I sell another one, then I'll order one then kind of mentality, which is geared towards DTF.
So I see this. So as we were, again, I'm not going to open up the whole tariff thing, but what we were chatting about, and we'll chat with Lee here in a little bit, is, not being a screen printer. And I was a little dramatic when I said I think screen print is dead. I don't mean screen print is dead traditionally. I mean that as the traditional screen printer is dead. I think we're no longer screen printers. We're decorators. We're garment decorators.
Right.
And by whatever method I need to use to make the most amount of money is how I'm going to decorate that garment. Right.
Right.
So it's giving me more tools in my tool belt. Well, part of that though too is historically, as we look at capturing more and more of our customers' buy dollars or spend dollars, us as decorators or traditional screen printers, we only got a proportion of their promotional budget,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they're doing all kinds of promotional materials. But historically, I haven't been able to do those in-house.
Okay.
So typically I would take the order and get really low margin to do pins, to do this, to do that. So I'm trying to capture the entire promotional buy, right?
Yep.
But now I think what you're seeing, DTF, in my opinion, is just the tip of the iceberg. So I think you're going to start, especially if you're like a PMI member, I think what you're going to see is now I'm going to be able to do all that promotional stuff in-house.
Nice.
So like Mamaki just launched the UV DTF printer. So that'll allow you to basically put a DTF sticker on anything.
Right.
So now I can do tumblers, mugs, pens, I can do anything. So anything I was historically outsourcing, I can now do in-house. Well, now I'm actually able to capture that budget as well and that spend, right? So as we continue to go down this technology path, I think it's just going to allow us as decorators to now we're going to decorate more than just t-shirts. We're going to literally decorate anything we can get our hands on.
Right.
And we now have the tools that give us the ability to do that. And it's really kind of exciting to see where that's evolving to.
That is exciting. So I'm like, actually, I like the idea that we're evolving. You're either getting bigger or you're getting smaller. Has been a
There's no such thing as standing still in this industry. Yep. Either
Not in
going
any
forwards or
industry.
going back.
Right, exactly. So I like, we have embraced things as they've come. Obviously, screen printing and embroidery have gone hand in hand for a long time.
Oh, for sure.
And then, the dye sublimation was another thing that came in. And, I've never embraced the full garment dye sub because you have to have cut and sew capabilities for that. But spot dye sub, absolutely. So we've bought into that. We bought into DTF. Thankfully, I remember I was there with my son at a trade show, and I was like, "That direct garment stuff sucks." And he's like, "What?" It was pretty cool. I'm like, "It's not in registration on its own underbase, even. Like, how can that's not good? Like, if my blind ass can see it, I'm sure a customer can see it." And then I was like, I don't want to have to pre-press the shirts. And at that time, it had ammonia in it. Do you remember the original stuff?
Yeah.
It just stunk. I was like, I'm going to pass on that until it becomes the norm.
Right.
And thank God it didn't. So
yeah, that would have been a tough way to make money. But
I remember that thing was like $200,000.
Oh, when they first came out, yeah. Those they were not inexpensive.
Yeah,
that is for sure.
Whoever sold those, you should hire them. They can sell anything. They can sell anything.
They made some good money. Made some good money back in the day. But so yeah, we got some exciting things coming up though. So
I'm excited about some of the new technology, like the stuff we're going to talk to Lee about.
That's what to me. That's what's and we'll chat about what's going on at Blue Ridge on another day. But the modernization of our industry is exciting to watch, and moving from DTF to screen print. Screen print has to modernize.
Yep.
It is too damn old. In a lot of the processes are archaic, right? So it needs modernization. So we're starting to see that. Yeah. We're starting to see, the modernization of the processes, that it's not taking such high skill level or such high art level to be able to do some of these tasks, and they're making it repeatable, right? So
I don't know. I actually think that it's automated a lot of the stuff, and it's made screen printing an art. Because now being able to lay it down in the right order, at the right pressure, at the right speed, that's the art of it.
No, it is. Okay, so we've always had the art of screen printing.
Yep.
But I think now it's making it more of a repeatable science, right? So
I agree. Yeah.
where before we started modernizing, even when we go to manual, every shirt was slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
They may look the same, but if you look closely, they're all slightly different, right? And even, when we were doing film positives and going to autos, they were still slightly different. And then you went into CTS, although better, still slightly different.
Right.
I think where we're moving to is taking it and turning it more into a science so that it's repeatable, and it's a repeatable process that I'm not relying on skilled labor to do.
Nice.
I think that's the best way I can put that.
I agree. I think eliminating some of the labor force on it is a big impact. I think automating these processes is a huge help. And the more you can automate it, we're going to find out the better we can register, the less time it takes to set up. And then truly the art process of this is the only skilled labor you really need.
Yeah, and if I can combine two processes into one, even better. So I think I'm really excited to have Lee on. So I guess without further ado, let's get him on. And with us today, we have Lee with Kiwo. Lee, if you want to introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are, your company you're with, and all good things, Lee.
Yeah, so my name's Lee Bryhn. I am the National Sales Manager for Kiwo Ulano, USA. So been in this role for about 2 years now, and my background is really equipment. I'm more on the equipment side, but been in the industry for about 35 years, so both as a printer and in sales. So
you piqued my interest. You were a printer.
Yeah, I started out in 1990 in working for a nameplate printer in Wisconsin, a very large company. And I was kind of in college at the time as a part-time thing. And then it eventually, you know how it is, once you're in this industry, you can't get out. So I moved on to another company and into a bigger role. So I was real young when I get into management positions, and did every aspect of it, from running a printing press to catching the parts at the end of the printing press to, screen making, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of got a pretty good background. And that was in the early 90s. And then mid 90s, I got into sales. I moved from Wisconsin down to Chicago and went to work for a company called CFAR, little company.
So you went to the dark side and then just never went back after that.
Yeah, something like that, right? No, it was a great experience. So it was still very good friends of mine. I live in the La Crosse area.
Okay.
So the western side of Wisconsin.
Yeah, is that where you went to school? UW La Crosse?
Yeah, everything was there. Yep. School, the job, family, everybody's here. So
awesome.
Wonderful.
So I'm from Madison originally. So
get out of here. No kidding.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm stomped around the same dirt.
So you've been on 3rd Street in La Crosse, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yep. Oktoberfest has been my downfall a couple of times.
Yeah, a lot of people's downfall. So
yeah. Did you grow up in La Crosse?
Yeah, born and raised.
Oh,
yep.
Nice.
Moved to Chicago for about 7 years.
Okay.
I worked for CFAR. So it was a good experience, but nice. I've been back here now long time. Possible move to Texas at some point here.
Yeah, how do you work for Kiwo and not end up in Texas?
It was, Kiwo is a long, very old German company. Kissel and Wolf out of Germany, as everybody knows. They started in the late 1800s. So there's still a lot of old thinking in some regards. And the initial thing was, you need to move to Texas. And I'm like, sure, we'll come. I didn't really mind it. I thought it'd be a good change, but our kids, are 13 and 12 years old. So it was one of those things where it's like, do we really want to move them right now? And we went, a ways down that road, but finally I convinced them, hey, it's a new world. Microsoft Teams is a beautiful thing, and you could be 1,000 miles apart and I'm sitting right next to you. So They agreed, and so for now I run a home office up here, have for years, but in a different capacity now. But there's still talk of maybe making my way down there. So I get down there. I try to get down there once a month, but it's not reality. It's once every 2 months. So yeah.
Well, cool. Awesome. Well, what else can you tell us about the, so
what led you to Kiwo? What brought you to Kiwo? And then what can you tell us about, where Kiwo fits in our market and what do you guys do for screen printers?
Sure. So when I was a printer, we used Kiwo Poly Plus SRX, which is a real high-end dual cure emulsion for fine printing of, overlays, nameplates, that kind of stuff. So, I was always a Kiwo user. It's always been a great product. This goes back to the early, mid 90s when we switched from capillary film to dual cure emulsion. So, Kiwo was really on the forefront of dual cure emulsions at that time, and so we got on board at that time, and it's they just grown the product line immensely. Over the years, I've kind of moved around a little bit. Eventually, I made my way to Kiwo in what year? Probably 2002, somewhere in there, and I was the equipment division sales manager for them for about 8 years. So we were selling, the Lusher computer to screen systems. And back then it was large format, because digital wasn't a player at that point.
Right.
The EFIs and the HPs and all those guys, they weren't really in that market yet. And so we were selling wax computer screen system in grand format, 8, 10 foot, 12 foot screen sizes. So we did real good job with it. So we were selling that equipment, some equipment, other equipment, little, coding machines, things like that. And then Lusher made a decision in 2009, 10, somewhere around there, to get out of screen printing and stick with computer to plate. So at that point, I was like, what do I do with myself, right? So I made a decision to go to work for a Swiss company that makes laser computer screen.
Okay.
A company called Syntronic. And they were strong at that time in graphics as well. The smaller format printers hadn't come along yet quite to accept computer to screen because of resolution things like that. So and the cost, it was just not susceptible to guys spending $30,000 a year on film. So I was with those guys for about 2.5 years, somewhere in there. Eventually, they were bought by the owners of Grunig, the guys that make the green equipment. So I was with them. It was a little bit of a crossover there where I was with those guys together. And there was just some things going on that I don't want to get into anything bad on this, of course, because I have a lot of respect for those guys. But there was just some things going on that I didn't really preferably like. So I made the switch to a company called CST, which was a competitive computer to screen company. So that was a German laser to screen. So I was with those guys almost 9 years and oversaw all of North America sales for those guys. So we did real well. And then a competitor of Kiwo's, a company called Saudi, bought CST, and I made a decision that I didn't want to be a part of that and came back to Kiwo at that point. So this was 2021. So
nice.
No, 2022, I think it was. So as the equipment division manager, then I got asked to take on this role. So I do a dual role. I oversee equipment and consumables, so everything.
So tell us a little bit about where Kiwo has gone from the emulsion stage. So we all know Kiwo makes great emulsions, but what are you guys at now? And where are you at with emulsion development?
Yeah, I think a lot of the new emulsion developments are really centered around these laser to screen systems. I mean, when there's requests that come through from our guys in the field, it's usually relating to what the competition's also doing. And the growth has been through computer to screen. And so that requires, SBQ emulsions, high-speed emulsions that can handle long print runs as well as high resolution. So that seems to be where most of the development's at, because everybody's really making that change over to direct to screen. We're even selling these to shops that are doing 20, 30 screens a day. So that's where we see the development, more or less. I'm not really sure what else can really be done. It's it's new and clever out there, but that's all based around that right now.
No, I can see that. I think that's where everyone's kind of trending is faster make readies and faster, just to faster exposures, faster everything. So if we've kind of tapped that, I think with SBQs, other than, ooh, I can make it 30% faster by a second. I don't
Sure.
necessarily know if that's what everyone's looking for if we've already got something that exposes in 9 to 12 seconds. So
So one of the big things is resolution, though, because especially if you're doing wet on wet, multicolored jobs,
halftones, simulated
Halftones.
process.
Sure.
That's really where I see the difference in emulsions when we're talking about high resolution stuff, 8-color graphics, that type of stuff.
Holding the dot a little
Right.
bit better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So what kind of dots are you holding with
Well, it really depends on the product and mesh. There's so many factors that play into this that even mesh color has a factor into how well these emulsions are curing and how the edge definition looks. And we're doing some just crazy edge definitions and line weights and fonts. I mean, we're seeing 2-point fonts that are. Can you print them? I don't know. They're in the screen. The issue is the mesh, right?
Right.
Because can you push the ink through the mesh? You can't. So, we actually do, when we do these installs, we actually set them up with plates, like a computer to plate system. Okay. So you really can see some crazy resolution details when these are done. But again, you throw it on mesh and it kind of just changes everything. So
yeah, we run into that with like registration marks and stuff like that. They're real fine lines. And even though they're 4 or 5 pixels in overall size, I mean, the line weight is a quarter pixel, half a pixel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're really struggling to get it through the mesh. Yep.
Yeah, most of our imaging is being done at 2,540 DPI. Okay. So it's overkill. It definitely is, but that's what the equipment is kind of set up to do. And nice. So we're doing some beautiful stuff. 120 line count type stuff, and
120 line screen.
Yeah, not so much in the garment world, but in other worlds, we can definitely do that. So.
So yeah, you brought something up that I know I get asked a lot, which I think is actually quite interesting. So the difference between white and yellow screen.
Sure.
How does that affect your emulsion and your exposure time?
Well, typically white exposes a lot faster because you don't have any, it's all reflecting, right? So when I relate this to computer to screen, you usually see about a 30% faster exposure with white versus yellow. There's no absorption, right? So the downside to the white is the fact there is no absorption, so you get all that light reflection, and so you can get what's called undercutting. So typically, if you want to do anything that's real high resolution or real high quality, you're not going to run it on white mesh. We do have some printers doing that, but not a lot.
So I'm assuming that's why most of your lower mesh counts are white, because your EOM is going to be thicker. Therefore, you're going to need the whiter mesh to help it expose faster.
Sure, and it's less costly to manufacture white mesh than it is to run a die through a thread and dye it yellow or orange or whatever color you want to dye it. So it's the cost of that product is also less. So there's just things that they do to bring down the cost of it. That's just one part of it.
Very cool. Very cool. I like
that.
So you mentioned laser systems. I'm assuming this is a big kind of leading cutting edge technology area in which Kiwo's heading. So we all know, we've spoken about this several times on this podcast, about going from standard screen positive exposing, moving to a CTS system. Even if that CTS system is ink based, it's still a significant leap, or wax based, it's still a significant leap ahead of doing film positives. So I'm assuming when we go to laser, we're just stepping up the next notch from there, right? So when we move from either an ink or a wax based technology to the laser, right, what are we gaining?
Well, the obvious thing is resolution, right? And you're eliminating one step in the process. So when you're imaging a screen with an ink-based system or a wax-based system, you're literally shooting that media onto a surface, a hard surface, which is the emulsion. So you're splattering that ink. It's very consistent, very repeatable, but it's still not original artwork or first generation artwork on your screen. you're throwing on a media that's splattering and gaining, whatever that is. So the difference between like wax and water base is the wax creates a structure when it hits, where water based inks will hit and then they'll spread. So depending on the room conditions, the type of emulsion, things like that, it's really hard to control the gain on a water based inkjet system. So when you look at inkjet to inkjet, the wax system's always going to give you a better resolution versus a water-based system because of that factor. But then when you jump to, then you still got to expose the screen, correct? So you're only imaging the screen. So then when you jump to a laser system, you're now original artwork. So this is first generation artwork in the screen. So it's a true replication of the artwork coming off of your file. So now we've done both steps in one process, the imaging and the exposing. So extremely clean edges. It's just it's night and day. We've got some samples that we actually show people that show, our system versus competitive ink-based systems to show you what the difference is. It's pretty eye-opening.
So I would assume then if you have no dot gain, and I'm used to someone having dot gain, I'm assuming that's a two-edged sword.
Yeah, do you have to relearn printing? Honestly, we print a certain way because we know it's going to gain a little color, right?
Sure.
Especially if you're black. Like, you know it's going to gain.
Of course.
Yeah. Like,
of course. So
I can imagine you have to relearn how to do all of it.
Or at least
to some degree.
Definitely up your screen print game is what it's going to end up making you do.
Yeah. Honestly, the biggest obstacle that we have is, so we sell a lot of these to existing iMage shops or Kiwo wax or Delpit wax or Exile, whatever it may be. And so like you said, they're used to that, adjusting for that gain. The issue that we have is they want us to match what they've been doing, right? So they want us to almost dummy down the system at times. And not everybody, but in some cases, this is one of the biggest challenges because it's hard to do that. It really is difficult to do that. So, there is a learning curve for sure.
Learning curve going from just
film
positives to we don't have an iMage, but a CTS.
It's a Screen Pro. So yeah.
So we went to Screen Pro, and all of a sudden, things we have printed 50 times correctly, they don't look right. And I was like, that's because it's got more resolution. We're not getting the dot gain. We're not getting the coverage we normally get. So we had to change mesh counts. We really had to learn some stuff. So it's part of new technology, right? It improves what you can do, but for us actual printers, we're not that smart sometimes.
Yeah, I tell everybody, listen, you're going to hate me the first 60 days.
Yeah.
You're going to make this investment. You're going to think it's going to fix all my problems. Life's great. I mean, this is all Star Wars type stuff, right? I'm shooting lasers and it's wonderful. And I've used that same line for 30 years. You're going to hate me when I sell a computer screen because it is an adjustment. You have to, as a manufacturer, a supplier, all of us, I'm talking about all the people that supply this equipment, we bring it into your shop, we set it up, we train you, we do all the right things, but then it's on you guys to have to figure it out in some regards, right? And I don't want to scare people that, but it's trial and error. Every press prints a little differently. You know that, right? So an M&R might print different than an MHM, and each printer themselves personally can print differently. Your mesh counts make a difference. Tension makes a difference. Frame style makes, so it's all these things that you have to put the time into it once you put this machine on your floor to really dial them in the way you like, for sure.
So what are some, so if you're someone who's looking to up your screen print game and you're either moving from a film positive and you're thinking, okay, do I want to go CTS or do I want to go laser? Or I've got a CTS system and maybe I want to go laser. When I look at, my facility, what makes a good facility for laser versus a bad facility for laser? So when I look at my facility, I look around, okay, if it's a dumpster fire, I'm going to go out on a limb here, probably not.
Yeah, you don't need a laser.
You don't need a laser. But my point being is there things that I need to be looking at as as a manager of my production going, okay, am I a good candidate for this or not?
Yeah,
Sure.
where are they going to see the bottom line effect?
I think that's
Right. So
I think that's a two-page. That's a
That's
double
a
question.
two-part,
That's
yeah.
a two-part question right there.
It's, well, I'll do my best to answer both. So listen, when we go into these shops, obviously you see varying levels of cleanliness. I'm trying to be nice. The cleaner the facility, the better. Obviously, you have to make this work properly. What we usually recommend, and it's not always the case, is we want people to put it almost into an isolated space. Put it in a room, put something around it, whatever it may be, to control the environment where the machine is at, because this is a big investment, and it's technology. It's something that you want. If you're going to make this investment, you want it to last, and so it starts with just making sure it's in the right conditions to run successfully. So
Sure.
that's number one. Number two, you need to have an automatic screen coder. Some people cheat and don't do it, but it's risky because you remember when you're scanning those lasers across the screen, it's very fast, and that emulsion variation can't change, because if it changes just a slight little bit, you're going to get under or overexposure. So, and that'll show when you get into the guys that are trying to do the higher quality stuff. So that's a requirement. On our side of it, we require it. We tell
Okay, so
people you need to
you're
have
saying,
it
so if
covered.
whether I've got a CTS machine or I'm doing film positive, before I ever move to laser, the first thing I need to do is invest in an autocoder.
Yes,
Got
exactly.
it. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So typically we sell them at the same time if they don't have one, but some companies, like you said, will invest in a coding machine first, and then 6 months later they'll make that investment in a computer screen system. So with an inkjet system, it doesn't matter. That stuff will stick. At least wax will stick to anything. So the variation doesn't make a difference, because you're just exposing it like you would a traditional screen, just blasting light at it and let it run. So the variation doesn't make a difference. So if you got a company that's like doesn't want to make this kind of investment, then you push them to an inkjet system. So for sure, but what these inkjet systems are costing today, 55 to, and I'm looking at wax more than anything right now, but 55 to 70,000, you're not far off from a laser system. So within
No, I'd
2
say
to
the
3
ink systems are
years,
similar. I think the ink systems are similar to that. I think both
Are
the
they?
ink and the wax are in the similar price
price
point.
range.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah,
I
3
will
years
say
into
with
an investment, you've
Yeah.
built your money back. No print heads, no consumables. It's easy.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So
So
then after the autocoder, the next thing they need is a broom. Is that what you were saying?
A broom, yeah, exactly. Clean up a little bit. Shop vac would be good.
Chop vac? Nice.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. So
build a
we
room.
we put these things in crazy places, guys. I mean, you wouldn't believe sometimes where people want to put these things, and we installed one up in your area. I think it was in New York, actually. They put it in a 20-foot container. So it was like literally in a container, it looked like, at least. So it was just like, okay, this works. It just fit right where they wanted it, and whatever. I've had guys looks like a meth lab. They put a freaking plastic thing around the thing just to isolate it. It's whatever floats your boat.
I'm assuming
I just want to know how you know what a meth lab looks like.
Well, that's a good question, right? Hey, Breaking Bad, right? We've all watched Breaking Bad at some point, right? It's not an RV, but it's a meth lab. It's got plastic around it, so it's
the truth. It's the truth.
We're more beer drinkers up here, and we're not too much into that stuff yet. So
I'll tell you a story about brandy's big in Wisconsin. When I first moved down here, I went to a watering hole, and I was like, I'll have a brandy and Coke. And they're like,
Sure.
Brandy doesn't work here anymore. I was like, wait a minute.
That's pretty good.
There's a girl named Brandy, and you can get Coke with her?
Yep. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So
nice.
Good times. Good times. So I'm assuming then the number one thing that affects the laser system must be dust.
Sure.
Or dust
exactly.
particles. Yeah.
Yeah. Heat, dust, those kind of things you want to try to maintain. Our system comes with an industrial chiller on it. There's an advantage to that. Some people will say that you have this extra module that you got to maintain. There's no maintenance to it, but this allows you to run in varying temperature, room conditioned temperatures, and maintain the proper temperature that these lasers need to perform at. So, but dust is an issue for sure. We want to keep things clean.
Okay. So you had mentioned our system. There obviously must be more than one out there. So how many people make laser systems?
Well, really, there's only two viable ones in the garment industry. If we're speaking on just garment right now, there's really only two of us, ourselves and the Saudi LTS, are really the only ones that are competitive. There's another company out of the Philippines that has got, I believe, one install in the Midwest. They're not really a player. It's a flatbed machine. It works similar to the Saudi with just the individual lasers. It's super slow. I think it works fine. They don't really have distribution. So on the graphic side, it's a lot different story. I mean, you've got Lusher out of Switzerland, who we represent, very high end system. You've got CST, which Saudi represents, and you got Syntronic, which is sold via NBC Meshtech. So those are the three players on that side of it. Obviously, that business isn't what it used to be. You sell a couple a year, it's a good year anymore, but you're talking $300,000-$400,000
right
for some of these machines. So depending, we do sell some in the graphic market. Our what we call our garment machine, we now build them larger, and they do fit well into that industrial nameplate graphics market as well. So we have been actually pretty successful in the last year selling into that side of the business. So right now, there's really only two of us playing hard in the U.S., us and Saudi, for sure.
Okay, so why you? I guess we begged that question.
Yeah, I love that
That's a
question.
good question. I mean, both machines are good. Saudi had about a 5-year head start on us, and they went through their learning curves early, had their struggles, which would expect with anybody, but they really figured those things out, and they've got a nice machine. I really don't have anything negative to say about it. Some of the other guys sell differently, but that's just how I approach it. I think you'd be happy with it if you bought one, for sure. But why us? Well, we have some differences between how we get the light to the screen. How we transport the light from the light source, which is laser fiber optic lasers, to the screen. They use depending on what model machine is, but they have up to like 128 lasers, I believe, that are individually aligned on a rail, and they really fast back and forth. So if you go to a trade show, you see this machine going nuts, right? Really fast it looks impressive, and it is, but they're only putting down 128 pixels at a time. What we do, similar to what the European manufacturers do, is we use what's called a DMD, digital mirror device, that has about 2 million little individual mirrors in this chip. It's made by Texas Instruments in Austin. And this thing, the light shines over the chip, and that chip scans. So you'll see our machine running, and it looks really slow, right? It's going slow, and it's going up and down the screen, really neat. And you can actually see the different changes in the light as it crosses through the screen. But we're putting down, almost 2 million pixels. So we don't have to run at light speed to try to keep up. So at the end of the day, we've actually had two scenarios recently where we were side by side in the same shops, two different shops. And we were about 8 seconds a screen faster, same emulsion, same design, same frames, everything. And our resolution was better.
Signal pass then?
Yeah, so it just scans, it's about a 1-inch width that it scans down, moves over, and scans back up. Just kind of works its across like this. Okay. So to do a 23-31-inch screen, you're about a little over a minute to do a screen. So it's really, it looks slower, and when you go to a trade show and you're like, oh, that's really slow. But it's not. It's actually faster because we're putting down a larger swath of light at a time. And the advantage of that is that we can control that much better. We can control that speed and really get the quality that I think the other system just can't achieve. It does good quality, it really does. But side by side, we definitely have a higher quality image on the screen. So, DMD's been around a long time. Some people like to say it's, extinct or old technology, when I just say it's established. It works very, very well. And that's really the differences, between our two systems, is how we get the light to the screen. We don't have that garage door that has to close in the front. You got to wait time to do that. All that. We don't have any of that because of the direction that the laser faces. So, and we have the inline ability. We can go inline, so we can actually plug our machine with an automatic loading station, an automatic developing system, and an automatic unloading station. So we can go with true automation in the screen. So we've done some of these already as well. So, but I don't believe that system has that option.
Okay. And then I think I saw online somewhere that you guys have several different versions. I think, or at a trade show, I think I've seen that, right? So
correct.
Why would I get one version versus another?
Well, so just to kind of go backwards a little bit on the guys that we are using. So when I came back to Kiwo, the first call I made was to a friend of mine in Asia that works for this company and said, hey, we need you to build us a machine because we need to be competitive to our competitor, Saudi, right? So their background was the flatbed systems, specifically in the Asian market. And the first conversation I had with them, they refused to build me a vertical machine because I'm a vertical guy, right? So, I'm like, no, this will only work if you build us a vertical machine. And they just didn't understand it. Right? No, it doesn't make no sense. Just sell these. And they had all these flatbeds and they take up massive amounts of space. So I explained to them that space is a limitation here, in screen rooms. It's the last part of the building that the owner invests into usually. And he's like, yeah, just go, you guys can have that corner of the building, right? And so when you need to have space, you don't get it. And so when you put this big old monster flatbed machine in there to do a 25, 36 inch screen, it's not doable. So they finally relented and said, okay, we'll build you a vertical. And that's what we did. And we primarily sell vertical models. We have two that we really promote is the 100V and the 200V. And the 200V was the first one that we did. And that was set up to do a Sakurai frame size, 5147 for the transfer world. That was my thinking behind that was, okay, this is the size I want to do. And we can fit 2 screens in there at a time. But it really wasn't, it's still too big and a little costly. And so then we did the 100V, which came down in size, fit better, sold a lot of these. And then we thought of the idea of, hey, why don't we just build a small flatbed that does a 2331 only? Because, right, we have all these shops that we're installing these machines at, and most of these guys are only running 2331. So let's just offer them a low cost, what we call the Nano, a low cost machine that's limited to 2331. And I tell you what, guys, it's been crazy. The amount of machines that we've moved in this nano size. It's a flatbed, and it's really small. It's not much bigger than an iMimage, to be honest with you. A little bit bigger, but not much. So it's an easy plug and play for an iMimage. Excuse me?
What's the price point on the flatbed?
Well, the pre-tariff or post-tariff? I mean, that's the $1 million question these days, right? Right, exactly. So, I mean, we've sold them for as low as $65,000.
Okay.
As high as $90,000.
That makes today's price at about $150,000.
Yeah, something like that. But we are working on some things to make it so we can get these in without this crazy tariff stuff. So we have a plan, and we hope that it will work. So we'll see.
Bring up because for the foreseeable future, we're going to have this tariff debate. So
correct.
Are most of your things made in China?
So the direct-to-screen systems, yes, they are made in China for both our companies, Saudi and us. The coders, we have a new coding machine that we've been introducing that's a real low cost, under $20,000. That was also being made in China. That's kind of on hold until we get this thing figured out. So, yeah, that does directly affect us. A lot of our consumables, believe it or not, Kiwo is a German company, but we manufacture in Texas all of our products here, except for our adhesives, which are screen printable adhesives or our frame adhesives to, glue the mesh down.
Oh, sure.
So those are all imported. So there's a tariff there now that, we have to adjust for. We have a lot of our chemicals, our solvents that we put in a lot of these screen cleaning systems. We buy raw materials from U.S. vendors that buy their raw materials from China.
Right.
So it's all kind of this reciprocal thing. It just kind of goes downhill, and it gets to us. And guess what? It's cost you more money now to make your product, and we're really hoping that this thing gets settled out quickly, because it's not a good time right now, for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. So the other thing I've noticed that you ventured into is you guys recently ventured into the DTF space.
Yeah, that was kind of something that we have a guy that's
have a guy. Everyone's got a guy.
Yeah, right. And you've met him, Nigel Haywood.
I know.
Nigel's background is film, and he came to work for us several years ago from Autotype, and brought that experience and knowledge with him, and we started to introduce inkjet films, as well as computer screens. So it was kind of a funny thing, but so we saw quite a bit of inkjet film, but then. It was COVID. I think it was COVID Long Beach, the first year might have been. And they still had the show. ISS didn't shut it down.
There.
They're like, yeah, we're going to have the show. I don't know if you guys went or not, but Nigel went. There's 18 people
I was there. Yeah.
You're one of the 18 people, right?
Yeah.
So, he walked around.
Friends.
Yeah. Probably knew everybody. So he started to notice, what's this DTF stuff popping up? And he's a smart guy, and he started looking into it, and he came to us and said, listen, we have to do something. He saw it coming early on, not as early as some companies, but he did see it, and put a tremendous amount of research into sourcing product from Asia, not necessarily Chinese. So and inks, our inks are made in North America. Our powders come in from Germany, so there's a lot of non-Chinese products that we offer for DTF. And now we're going to be introducing a new product that's a paper-based DTF. We're the only ones that will have it, as far as we know. That's what we're being told. So we're doing some testing now at some various shops around the country, and so far the results have been tremendous. So. We're hoping this is the future, is paper, because of the recycling aspect of it, right?
Oh, for sure.
You're not throwing plastic onto the earth. So,
paper?
Excuse me?
Is it like similar to the paper that they use on A and B paper?
Yeah, I don't know A and B, but I honestly, I'm not technically know a lot about it. I'm just trusting what Nigel's telling me. So we only had like 10 rolls brought in that we've started to ship around to try, and so.
I can tell you from firsthand knowledge, Nigel was very successful in the adhesive that he brought in.
Okay.
So that adhesive, if you need bleed blocking, I've tried all the powders out there, and there ain't anything like it. Like exactly. we had a one customer they were trying to do a white logo on this red cap, and this red cap. It was like the worst bleeding T-shirt you've ever seen. Like, it was god awful.
Red and black.
And they're like, if you can print on this, we'll buy your system if you can print on this, but no one has been able to print on this. And I'm like, can I get that in writing? And he's like, what? I'm like, I need that in writing. And he's like, fine, I'll put it in writing. And it's the only adhesive that we have found that does not bleed, like, at all. So
it's built that way.
It is. So if I will say from a DTF standpoint, if you've got customers who are transferring onto polyester or anything that might have to bleed, it is a phenomenal powder. I mean, phenomenal.
Yeah, it's German made, so nothing out of Germany is
not over-engineered at all.
Nah, not at all, right? Not at all. Right? There's a reason you call everything premium, right? So
that's right.
The sticker shock isn't so bad. So, but yeah, DTF's a real deal. I mean, that stuff it's here. I'm a screen print guy, so it's tough. It's not going anywhere. So
it's gonna balance out. I think it's
eventually,
definitely the hype.
Yep.
It'll eventually balance out.
Yep.
I think it's definitely changing the landscape of screen print. Not necessarily for the worse. I actually think it's changing it for the better.
In all honesty, I think DTF would have been 3 years earlier had DTG
not soiled the market.
soiled the
I
market.
completely agree. Yes.
Everybody was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's going to be just like direct to garment," and it's not. And
No.
we've talked about it on this show several times. Like direct to garment, it was a belly flop. But I think it scared people.
Sure.
Just probably because of the similar acronym, you know.
Oh, I think that's some of it, but I think some of it though too is that going, okay, let me let's see where this thing settles out, because I already did this once before where I pissed away 30 grand or 50 grand at 250 grand, and it didn't go anywhere, right?
Right.
Ask Amazon.
Yeah, got a nice boat anchor.
Yep.
So I think some people were waiting to see, and I think now they're going, okay, I get it. Like this is people are making money doing this.
So I say,
to me, it's
DTG printers is that you can convert them to a DTF printer.
That's the truth. Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the brothers you can actually convert from.
There's a couple that can be converted. Yeah.
From DTG to DTF.
Okay.
Now the print quality isn't as good as a true DTF printer, but hey, if I've got an asset sitting there that I haven't used in 18 months to 2 years,
Right. If you got $250,000 in your portfolio, you should get it working.
where I can resurrect it,
Yeah.
and have it make some money. I mean,
So, well, anyway, so we were talking about the future of this, and I was just saying I think it would have had an earlier start. So it's still got a few years for it to settle out, I think. I've talked to other printers about just if they need DTF services, and they're like, "We're not doing DTF. That's garbage." And I was like,
Sure.
Sure it is.
we've said it many times on this show that if you're a screen printer die guy, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
It's you're not gonna make it.
Yep.
It's it is, I think. I just think it's good for the growth of our industry. I really do. But I also don't think it's going to take away from screen print. I really don't. I think they're two very different things. And I think, I think people will realize what they were printing on, as we've said in the show before. They're printing stuff on an auto they should have never been printing on an auto. And now it allows them to put that on a different apparatus that they can make money on rather than putting it on screen print. Because no one needs to be burning screens for a 3-color 30-piece job. Like no.
Yeah. I mean, I equate this similar to what digital did in the graphics industry. It was a great complementary part of the business, right? And there's a balance that everybody has to find between the two processes. So,
absolutely. I do the same thing. I refer it to sheet fed offset.
Yep.
Very similar, right? Where
exactly.
Back in the day, I would have a 150-piece run, and I put that on a sheet fed offset press. But on a sheet fed offset press, it takes 100 sheets just to get in registration. So I'm literally burning through 100 sheets to print 150. Like it didn't make any sense. Like that.
No.
So when digital came out, it wasn't the quality of offset, but I'm also making money doing it. And I can turn my turn times faster, and everybody wins, right? It's cheaper. Everybody loves it.
And their customers accept it. They realize there's a price difference. It's like, sure, this is good enough. And that's what happens. Okay, you can buy it at this price, or you can buy it at this price. And it's like, I'll make that price look good. So,
100%.
For sure.
So earlier we had talked about, how does some of your products fit into, like, who are your target screen printers that you'd like to see? But talk to me about the bottom line. Like, what can your laser systems, your emulsions do to help improve the bottom line at screen print shops?
Well, it depends on how they're currently doing their process.
Okay.
If it's a film system, then it's pretty simple, right? There's a monetary cost to film. There's about a 13-step process from art department to press. Where with screen, it's a 6-step process, with laser, it's a 6-step process. So it's not just on the consumable side of it. Usually when you factor in an ROI for a customer, 25% of the ROI is correlates to film savings or consumable savings, right? The other 75% comes from process savings, time savings. So, you're eliminating all aspects of film handling, from film storage, the guys looking for film, waiting for the film to come out of the imager, putting it in an envelope, walking it over, or a tube, or whatever it is, setting it up by hand and taping it down, and then vacuum table, all that stuff is gone. So there's so many advantages to it that people don't even realize. The fact that we can place an image on a screen, from screen to screen to screen, on a multicolor press within a thousandth of an inch. This reduces our setup time on press quite a bit. So that's where your money's at. So if you can get up to printing 50% faster in registration, it's money in the bank. So that's where the real savings come from. It's not even so much in the screen room. I mean, it's a factor, but we look at the whole process from art department to press. That's how we look at it. And it's not just a screen room function or savings. So that's where the bottom line
comes from. So it sounds to me
it's
more of a setup savings than anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No question.
Consumable savings too. It's labor savings.
Yep.
So there's
a lot of things.
I bring it up is that we went from film positives to CTS, and we were able to actually just reduce our cost on what it takes to make a screen. So our screen charge actually went down to our customers, which makes us more competitive. We didn't have to do it, but we wanted to continue to be competitive. So, but even if you're just maintaining your screen costs, because labor is going up, consumables are going up, electricity, hopefully that's going to start going down, but it has been going up. All that stuff is part of the bottom line. And if you can just get that reduced and maintain your price, it was a huge factor for us. The film positive,
no question,
experience for me.
Yeah.
So
no
I don't know
question.
if anybody likes it.
I don't think anybody likes it, but I mean, you actually have to have a pretty keen eye for it, so it's lined up right, and you got to have that same keen eye for all 8 screens. And like he's saying, if you could do 8 screens within a thousandth of an inch, I know I wasn't getting it within a thousandth of an inch when I was doing 8 separate
No way.
screens.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
There's
The
no
thickness
way.
of a line is bigger than that.
Yeah.
So the line you're using on your light table or whatever is way thicker than a thousandth of an inch.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, cool.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I already knew how I would have answered that, but I
Sure.
just wanted to give you enough, tee it up for you.
So we have an in-depth ROI calculator that I can share to customers if they really want. We don't get too involved in that, but it's a multi-page where it looks at all aspects, covers your existing consumable costs. It goes into press setup times, number of presses, number of screens per day, and it actually gives you a really good readout of what your true costs are in your screen. And most people don't know. So it's a nice tool. You're right. I mean, and to be honest with you guys, I've been doing computer screen 30 years probably. And I think every single one that I've done, it's an ROI, is truly conservative. Most customers will tell you, yeah, the ROI is faster than what you said it was, because we didn't realize this or that.
What do you think it takes to earn your money back?
Well, it depends on the cost and what you're investing, right? Are you talking about screen volume to make it up, or are you referring
I'm just talking about if you had overall, I suppose it's going to be determined by how big your shop is and how many
screens you're doing per day.
Every day
exactly.
And everything else. But
exactly.
The only reason I bring it up is it took us about 2 years to get our.
Well, that was the number I was going to say. 2 years.
Yeah.
That's usually my baseline. Is it's got to be 2 years or less.
Yeah,
so
and the life expectancy on it is.
Well, I mean, 5 to 10 years should be at least. I mean, I've got systems that were 18, 20 years old in the market. So,
you're ahead of the game for 8 years, roughly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So, but I like to look at 2 years and less, and I see that, and I'm like, okay, this probably makes sense for you.
Right.
So,
nice.
Well, I would say for our listeners, it'd probably be good if I put a little link
to the ROI.
So, Lee, if you want to send me the ROI, I can actually give everyone a link that they can go to if interested.
Yeah, the beauty of the ROI calculator, it's your information. It's not something I'm putting in. It's just your information. It just calculates it all the way through the calculator and comes out. It's not something I'm fabricating. So it's simple, and I gladly can help anybody if they look at it, they want to reach out to me, and would be happy to help anybody talk them through how to use it. So
Nice.
But I'll
So
send
how
that
would
to you.
they reach out to reach you, Lee?
You could try my email, which is just Lee, Leeb as in boy, Lee B at Kiwo.com would be the best way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Lee. You got anything for us? Any burning questions on Dumb and
Ugh.
Dumber over here? I mean,
I'm dumb.
Dumb and Dumber, right? That's a great movie, by the way.
it is a good movie.
One of the best.
The Dumb and
One of the
Dumber wasn't that good.
So you're
But
saying there's
Yeah.
a chance.
that's right.
You're
This is
saying-
1 in a
You're
million talk.
saying there's a chance. Great line. So yeah, no, I'm good. I mean, this was fun. I had a lot of fun. First time I've done this. I appreciate you reaching out and asking me. So
Absolutely.
I'd
I
do this
appreciate
again
you coming
sometime.
on.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? I am one of those melodramatic fools.